Greetings, YouTube. My name is Tyler, and this is a reading vlog. This will be what I read in the first week of February. So, it is the 1st of February, and I'm just going to give you a little update about where my reading's at. I am currently listening to The Vanishing Half as an audiobook. I don't read a lot of fiction in audiobook form. However, it's a very strange reasoning for why I decided to listen to this as an audiobook. Last year I listened to Somebody's Daughter, and I kept confusing these two books. And I didn't really love that book very much, so I've seen great things about The Vanishing Half. It's been on my TBR, but I just kept feeling this resistance to like picking it up and reading it physically, just because it's so strangely connected for no good logical reason to Somebody's Daughter. So I decided to give it a go on audiobook because it seemed like the least difficult way to get it read. So I'm listening to that as an audiobook. I'm only, I don't know, like an hour or two in. It's alright so far. So there's that. This month, the topic, the prompt for Unread Shelf is courage. So I decided to finally give Between a Rock and a Hard Place by Erin Ralston a go. This is the book and the story, life story that 128 Hours is based on. I've been interested in this story for a while. It's been on my Goodreads TBR for ages, and then I found a copy of this at a random yard sale a couple months ago. So courage seemed like the perfect prompt for reading this finally. However, I did just do my first like Pomodoro sprint with it, and I can't say I am loving the writing style. I will give it a couple more goes throughout like this week to see if I want to keep reading it or not, but it's possible I might end up DNFing it. But I want to give it a fair go because it has been on my TBR for like a very long time. And I do tend to like survival stories, so hopefully like once we get into the swing of things, like once we really get into it, I'll have a better time. The other thing I haven't started yet, but we'll be starting soon, but I just wanted to talk about in the context of this, is White Oleander. Since me and my friend DNF'd Horror Store, we decided to find a new buddy read. We are very committed to at least buddy reading one book a quarter. It has been a while since we read something together. It's just a lot of fun for us to read stuff together and chat. And so I suggested this, and she said she would be down to give it a go. This is a book that has lived on my TBR also for a very long time. Goodreads tells me I put it on my TBR in 2020. I'm pretty sure that's the second time I have put it on my TBR. I'm pretty sure it was on there previously. I removed it and then I put it back. And I think I was considering removing it again. And then Lauren at Paperback Empire said it was like one of her favorite books. So I held on to it. And like, I just needed the push to read this. So I will be buddy reading this in February. My friend is waiting for a hold to come in before we can start it, but I own this. I picked it up at the Friends of the Library sale like a year and a half ago or something like that. So, yeah. So getting some long-awaited books off my shelves either way. Whether they both end up being flops, whether I end up loving both of them, who knows, but they will be off the TBR shelves. We are doing work, people. So that's kind of what my reading is like right now, this week, in the future. We'll see what else shakes out. I should be starting the 3rd volume of Sweet Tooth, and I'll probably read the graphic novel I picked up from the library last week. Or was it 2 weeks ago? I don't know. The Night Eaters. graphic novel. I should probably start soon. So yeah, I will talk to y'all when I have something to check in about. Greetings! So I'm pretty sure I have started this vlog already. I can't quite remember what I talked about in that first clip, but I vaguely remember recording it. I have finished a couple books this week that I have not talked about yet, mostly because I'm trying to finish the full series so that I can talk about it in one fell swoop. So hopefully that will be a little later in this vlog. However, I did just finish listening to The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. 4 stars. I actually liked this quite a bit. It's kind of funny. It kind of reminded me of my experience reading Fried Green Tomatoes. It has that like book club feeling to the book, and I don't mean that in like a negative or bad way. This just feels like something I would want to read with another person. It is about 2 light-skinned black girls. They're twins. They grew up in this very color-centered town in Louisiana called Mallard. They disappear, and then one comes back. The way it's phrased, like disappear, makes it seem like it's like a crime mystery sort of deal. It's not. They run away, and then one comes back to this town. Hello, editing Tyler. I just realized like I never finished the summary of The Vanishing Half before I like started getting into my thoughts about it. So the story is about the 2 twins and their daughters, but the I guess tension in the novel is that the twins split off, and one continues living as a black woman and one starts living her life as a white woman. So there's a lot of exploration of that, just race, but also like dark skin versus light skin sort of stuff. So I just wanted to throw that in there and kind of finish the train of thought that never got finished. However, this is like split into a couple different perspectives. So it's the 2 twins, Stella and Desiree, and then their daughters, Jude and Kennedy. And it goes through time. The one issue, in quotes, that I had with this was in listening to it, it does go back and forth in the timelines quite a bit. So like there's a couple parts, I think 5 parts maybe, and like roughly they are in a certain decade. But within those parts, it still goes back and forth from like when they were kids to when they were older or whatever. So I did find it just a little difficult to fully understand what time I was in following the back and forth threads. And there were definitely some times where I had to go back, like stop and go back some to really figure out when this was happening or think about how these connected, especially in like the last part where there's a lot more like tying up everyone's stories together, and there's a little bit more going back and forth in time in like quicker succession than was happening in the other parts of the book. Jude was definitely my favorite of the main characters. I don't know, I just really liked Jude's story. I liked that there was a little bit of queerness in this. I wasn't expecting it. I haven't like, I didn't in depth read the plot summary before I started this. So I don't know if it actually got mentioned in the summary or not. But it was a surprise to me, and I enjoyed all that little thread going through the book. And that's another way it kind of reminds me of Fried Green Tomatoes, like just this little queer element that you wouldn't necessarily expect in like a historic fiction that like, in, you know, Fried Green Tomatoes takes place in the South, but like the South is a big part of the Vanishing half too, even though not all of it takes place in the South. Oh, hi Gus, you came running. So I really just liked that, enjoyed that. The other thing I will say about the audiobook is I wish there were multiple narrators, because like I said, it does focus on these 4 different people. But sometimes the voices got hard to differentiate, and I feel like it would have been a little bit easier for me to follow along with the different threads, like the timelines, a little bit better for me if it had been 2 narrators, or a narrator for each character. Some of the men's voices got a little confusing for me personally. I mean, overall I was able to get the whole story, but sometimes it just felt a little more difficult than I wanted it to be. But overall I really liked it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It kind of makes me want to reread Fried Green Tomatoes. It's been a few years since I've read it. I really like Fried Green Tomatoes. But anyways, I will leave it at that. 4 stars. Had a good time. Glad I read it. I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Howdy YouTube. It is February 5th. I have like 40 pages of the last trade paperback of Sweet Tooth left, so like, I don't know, it's either 1 or 2 issues. One issue is usually around 20 pages, but this seems like maybe it could be the final issue. So I thought I would read it, do a little read with me, and then I will give you my final thoughts on Sweet Tooth as a whole. So I'm reading it on my phone, which I guess probably won't be all that interesting to watch, but I'll speed it up. I listened to Cabinet Battle #1 from Hamilton once. Last month, the beginning of January, I listened to it once, and now Google Music just constantly plays it on shuffle for me. Why? Artemis. Okay, hi. That was incredibly unexpected. I did not expect to bawl my eyes out reading the last issue of Sweet Tooth. I moved inside because the neighbor behind us was out in her backyard, and our yards are not that big, and I was too embarrassed to talk while she was out there. Anyways, so I haven't checked in about Sweet Tooth since issue 2. So issues 3 and 4 I gave 3.5 stars, which got rounded up to 4 on Goodreads. Issue 5 ended up being a 3 again. It went down. There was a long section of it that was like in the early 1900s. An Englishman was traveling to Alaska to find his brother or brother-in-law who disappeared on an expedition in Alaska. And I don't know, there ended up being these long pages of like white men murdering Inuit people in Alaska, which like I didn't love, and like he was the bad guy. It was bad, but it like just made me uncomfortable, and it started off that trade paperback, and it was just like a lot of issues, and I just did not love that storyline, although I see why it was important to the story. But that's why that one ended up being a 3. I thought this was going to be like the first solid 4, like not rounded up 4. But I did not expect that last issue to just like so thoroughly tear and pull at my heartstrings. So I'm going to have to give it a 5. It's really interesting because I was thinking while reading how the TV show feels more heartwarming, even though it is also dark and grim, where this just felt very dark and grim through the whole thing. But man, that last issue really managed to pack an emotional punch. Like, holy cow. So it's very different than the TV show. There was a whole part about like the preserve in the TV show that like doesn't actually really exist in the comics. And in the TV show, there's a lot more shown of the before times. We get a lot more people's backstories than we really do in the comics. I think Abbott and Big Man are the only ones we get like a real true like understanding of what they were doing before the plague comes. Actually, Becky gets a little bit of a backstory too, but like even these ones that get backstories, there's not like a ton of it. Whereas I feel like in the TV show, we get a lot more of the backstory of people like Dr. Singh. Like he gets a lot of backstory in the TV show that there's like none in the comics. It's very different. I'm intrigued to see which direction the show's gonna go in. I'm expecting that like the reasoning for the hybrids might end up being different. But you know, I'm really glad I read it, especially because that last issue, it made me feel all the things. I'm still stuffy from all the crying I did. I like genuinely, I was not expecting that because I really didn't have any super emotional moments while reading, except for one section when something bad happened. I shouted out and I couldn't believe it. That ended up being a little bit of a cliffhanger. And there were some times where I was like, oh, is this gonna end up being bad because it is so dark and grim? I would not have been surprised if some characters had died at certain points, but I didn't want them to because I liked them. So there was a little bit of that like, oh, what's gonna happen? But not like the level of crying or emotions I felt when I was watching the TV show, or the level of crying I did when reading that last issue. So I'm really glad I read it though. I'm gonna rewatch the TV show now. It's been a while. We'll see if the second season even comes out, or if Netflix even finishes this with the clusterfuck that Netflix is currently doing with its brand right now. But anyways, so yeah, those are 4 books that I read in this first week of February. Yeah, I will talk to y'all later. Greetings. It is, what day is it? February 6th. And I just finished reading The Night Eaters by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I found the art in this to be just absolutely beautiful. However, through a large chunk of this, I struggled with the transitions between scenes. The like jumps between scenes, like in the middle of conversations, and then like continuing the conversation panels later, even though it seemed like time had passed, I found to be really disorienting and really jarring. And there was just, I don't know, it was very weird to me. However, a lot did get explained, like what the fuck was going on in the very end, like the last issue and a half. Really explained some stuff. This actually tied up like the story together in a lot more cohesive fashion than I expected, since this is a series. I usually don't expect like the first volume in a graphic novel series to be a full story, really. I expect it to end on kind of a cliffhanger. You get a little bit of answers, but there's like a big cliffhanger, and that's what makes you want to keep reading. However, this is like a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And you can see where the rest of the series is going, but like this is a full story, which was a surprise. I think I will be leaving the series here. It looks like book 2 and 3 aren't out yet, because at the end it says book 2 fall of 2023, so that's this year. So the whole series isn't out, but I don't plan on continuing to read. I'm content with the story I got with this, and just with the kind of struggles I had. I just don't feel the call to continue reading about these particular characters. So yeah, I thought the art was beautiful, but it's just a 3 for me, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Hi, I am doing a real quick check-in. Well, actually I need to close out too, so I guess I will try to do that off the top of my head. But first, I am DNFing What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I don't know, this just was not my vibe at all. One, I didn't realize it was a retelling of the, what is it? The Fall of the House of Usher. If I had read anything, if I had looked at the flap or the back of the book when I checked this out, I would have realized that, but I didn't. I'm not like a huge Edgar Allan Poe guy. Like I don't hate Edgar Allan Poe, but I see like the memes and things about how his stories will haunt you when you randomly read them in high school literature class. I never really had that experience with Edgar Allan Poe, to be quite honest. And this was not one of the stories I read when we did Edgar Allan Poe. We did The Raven, The Cast of Amontillado, whatever that one is. And I think there was one other one I can't think of. So I have never read this story. But the other thing is like the way it's written, like just does not vibe with me. It is, you know, historic. It's set back in time. And I just, like, I don't know. It is written in the way that I imagine historic and like historic fantasy to be written, and I don't enjoy reading it. So I fought through 20 pages and I just decided I'm gonna let it go, because I'm not like raring to read this. The cover just, I don't know, made me think it was going to be something I enjoyed, but like a retelling, historic, well, I don't know. It just was not fitting the vibe for me. So it's a DNF. So closing out this vlog, I read 6 books this week. 5 of them were Sweet Tooth, I believe. Is that right? No, sorry. 4 were Sweet Tooth, so Sweet Tooth's 3 through 6. 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 3 through 6. And then I read The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and I read The Night Eaters by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, I believe. So everything was 3 stars and above. I didn't do any of my ratings or anything like that because I don't have my journal down here, so we're not gonna get that granular in detail. I think I have to say the last trade paperback of Sweet Tooth was my favorite, just because I was crying my eyes out. Although The Vanishing Half, I really enjoyed that too. And then I guess my least favorite was The Night Eaters, just because it didn't do like a whole lot for me, even though it was still 3 stars, so like there wasn't anything bad about it. It just didn't like grip me in any way. So there is that. Yeah, so now I can return this to the library. I'm gonna probably go wander around the library, pick up some books probably that I don't need, that have been distracting me from my actual real TBR books. Anyways, I will talk to y'all next week in a different vlog. Bye! Hello. A quick postscript. It is still February 7th, but I just finished my like 4th or 5th sprint for Between a Rock and a Hard Place by Aaron Ralston, and I'm DNFing this. I don't know. I just like could not vibe with like his writing voice. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it just was so boring, technical, dry. Yeah, I don't know. And there was just like, strangely, in the like 50-ish pages I read, most of it wasn't even spent with like the actual event that like the book is known for. So much of it was like him getting there and like his childhood and background and stuff, and like I get to a point why you need that to like place this event and how he got there, but I don't know, it just wasn't working for me, so I'm DNFing it. I'm getting rid of it. I'm gonna drop it off at a free little library probably. So yeah, that's 2 DNFs this week now, but it gets it off my TBR, so I can't be too upset about that. Alright, I will see y'all next week. Bye!